Abandoned at the altar, she proposes a temporary marriage to a mysterious gardener, without knowing he's a billionaire. Before we begin the story, leave in the comments which city you're watching from. And at the end, don't forget to rate this story from 0 to 10. Enjoy the story, everyone. 3 hours, 27 minutes, and 12 seconds. That was exactly how long Emma Hart had been standing at that altar, like a forgotten fern on a porch. Decorative, motionless, and slowly dying inside. The wedding dress weighed a ton. Maybe 2. Emma was certain the seamstress had sewn bricks into the hem without telling her, probably as revenge for all those times she called at 11 at night, asking if it was possible to adjust just one more little thing. 147 guests were staring at her. 147 people who had come from different states, bought expensive gifts, and put on uncomfortable clothes on a sunny Saturday. All to watch Emma Hart marry a man who had apparently decided there were more interesting things to do. Like not existing. The phone in the secret pocket of her dress. Yes, she had demanded a secret pocket, because she was a practical woman. Hadn't vibrated for exactly 2 hours and 53 minutes. The last message from Kevin, her digital fiancé, Prince Charming from the dating app, future father of her planned 2.5 children, said only, "On my way, love." Traffic. Traffic in Savannah. On a Saturday. Emma wanted to laugh, she wanted to cry, she wanted to dig a hole in the church's marble floor and live there for the rest of her life like an underground creature who would never have to face relatives asking, "So, when's the wedding?" Because now she would have an answer. Never. The wedding is never. You can all go home. Sweetheart. Patricia Hart's voice cut through the silence like a cake knife through styrofoam. "I'm sure Kevin is just..." Running late, Emma finished with a smile that hurt her facial muscles. Traffic. You know how it is. Patricia knew how it was. Everyone knew how it was. Traffic in Savannah on a Saturday was about as intense as the activity in a library at 3 in the morning. But Emma kept smiling, because if she stopped smiling, she would start screaming, and if she started screaming, she probably wouldn't stop until Tuesday. "I'll ask for 1 more hour," she announced to absolutely no one in particular. "Just 1 more little hour. He's coming. I know he is." She didn't know. In fact, she was absolutely certain Kevin wasn't coming. Kevin probably never existed. Kevin was a collection of photos stolen from stock photo model, a nice voice on calls always with a broken camera, and a fertile imagination that Emma had fed with her own desperate loneliness. But admitting this now meant admitting she had been deceived. That she had planned an entire wedding with a ghost. That she had sent invitations, chosen flowers, argued with her mother about the color of napkins. All for a man who was probably in another country, laughing at the foolish American woman who believed in virtual love. 1 hour. She just needed 1 hour to figure out how to fake a heart attack, convincing enough to be taken away by ambulance without having to explain anything to anyone. "Excuse me," Emma murmured, lifting the hem of her dress as if carrying a block of ice. "I need some air." "Air?" Patricia frowned. "Emma, you're in the middle of your..." "Air, Mom. I need air." And before anyone could argue, Emma Hart crossed the church nave like a tsunami of tulle and despair, leaving a trail of rose petals that came loose from the bouquet with each furious step. The side garden of the church was the kind of place that existed to make people cry in romantic movies. Roses everywhere. Red, white, yellow, pink. A festival of soft petals organized in perfect flower beds, as if nature had hired an interior decorator. Emma stopped in the middle of the stone path, her veil caught on a low branch, her dress collecting dry leaves, her mascara probably creating an abstract work of art on her face. "Great," she said to a particularly large red rose on her left. "Just great. I'm having a conversation with a flower on the day of my wedding. That's not going to happen. This is normal. This is completely normal and healthy." The rose didn't respond. "Obviously. At least you listen to me," Emma continued, crouching with difficulty thanks to the 17 layers of petticoat. "You don't judge me. You don't ask, but you never saw him in person? You don't make that 'I told you so' face." She plucked a petal from the bouquet and placed it at the rose's feet as an offering. "You know what the problem is, Miss Rose? The problem is that I wanted to believe so badly. You understand? I wanted someone to choose me so much that I ignored all the red flags. All of them. It was a parade of red flags, and I was there applauding, throwing confetti, shouting, "Go flag, go!" A tear rolled down. Then another. Now I'm here, in a white dress, talking to a plant, while 147 people wait inside to witness my public humiliation. You know what my Aunt Gertrude's going to say? Do you? She's going to say, "I always knew this internet thing was no good." And she still uses a flip phone. "A flip phone, Miss Rose." "That's Margaret." Emma froze. The voice came from somewhere behind her. Male, calm, as if men appearing out of nowhere in church gardens to correct the names of roses was the most normal thing in the world. She turned around so fast that the veil made a dramatic arc in the air, knocking over a watering can that was balanced on a rock, which hit a garden gnome, which fell on top of a ceramic frog, which rolled until it stopped exactly on top of the foot of the man who had spoken. "Oh my goodness, oh my goodness. I'm sorry. The watering can and the gnome, and..." Emma gestured frantically while trying to get up, but the hem of her dress was caught on something and she swayed dangerously before falling seated on a stone bench she didn't even know was there. The man looked at the ceramic frog on his foot, then at Emma, then at the frog again. "At least it wasn't the flamingo," he said, pointing to a pink metal flamingo balancing a welcome sign in its beak. "That one's heavy." Emma blinked. He was unexpected. Gardening pants stained with dirt. Plaid shirt with sleeves rolled up to the elbows. Hands that clearly knew manual labor. And a face that didn't match any of that. As if someone had placed a model's head on top of a farm worker's body. Not a runway model. More like a thoughtful man looking out the window on a rainy day in a premium coffee commercial model. "You," Emma began, still processing. "You appeared out of nowhere. I was pruning the azaleas," he pointed to a bush on the other side of the garden. "But your conversation with Margaret was so engaging that I didn't want to interrupt." "Margaret?" "The rose." He approached, carefully took the frog off his foot with almost reverent care, and put it back in its original place. "That one there is Margaret. She's a good listener." Emma looked at the rose, then at the man, then at the rose again. "You give names to the roses?" "Only to the ones that deserve it." There was a pause. The kind of pause that happens when two complete strangers realize they're having a conversation too bizarre for any normal social standard. "I'm the gardener," he explained, as if that clarified anything. Nathan Blackwell." "Emma," she responded automatically. "Emma Hart, the bride abandoned at the altar in there." The words came out before she could stop them. Raw, real, humiliating. Nathan didn't make the pitying face she expected. He didn't offer empty condolences. He didn't say, "I'm sure he's coming." He just looked at her with those eyes that were too calm and said, "He doesn't deserve your tears." Emma felt something break inside her. Not in a bad way. In a liberating way. Like when you finally admit you hate the haircut you got and can stop pretending everything is fine. "I don't even know you," she whispered. You don't need to know someone to know that a woman who talks to roses and knocks over garden gnomes deserves more than a coward who doesn't show up to his own wedding. Before Emma could respond, and she had no idea what she would respond, a shrill voice cut through the moment. "Emma! Emma, for goodness sake, your mother is having a nervous breakdown." The priest asked if he should release the guests. "Aunt Gertrude is taking bets on whether the groom died or fled the country." Sophie appeared at the garden entrance, her red curls in disarray, her bridesmaid dress crooked, the expression of someone who had run a marathon in high heels. "Time's up, Emma. You need to go in there and..." Sophie finally noticed Nathan. "Who's this?" Emma looked at Sophie, then at Nathan, then at the church, where 147 people were waiting for a bride who had no groom. And then, because Emma Hart was the kind of person who made spectacularly insane decisions when cornered, she said the words that would change her life forever. "Sophie, this is Nathan, my fiancé." The silence that followed was so dense that Emma could swear she heard Margaret the Rose gasp. Nathan Blackwell, mysterious gardener, flower expert, man who had been perfectly calm 30 seconds ago, finally showed a different expression. He blinked once, twice, and then, with a calm that defied all logic, he asked, "Does this include having to wear a suit?" Sophie was having a breakdown. At least that's what it looked like, considering the way her left eye was twitching. Her mouth was opening and closing without making a sound, and her hands were making gestures that looked like a mix of sign language and someone trying to swat away invisible bees. Your fiancé, she finally managed to articulate, pointing at Nathan as if he were a particularly convincing hallucination. This man, in gardening clothes, is your fiancé. Surprise? Emma tried, with a smile that probably looked more like a grimace of stomach pain. Nathan, for his part, remained absurdly calm, as if desperate women introduced him as fake fiancés every day. Maybe it was Tuesday for him. Maybe Tuesdays in Savannah were like this. I'm going to need some context, he said, turning to Emma with that serene expression she was already starting to find slightly disturbing. Quite a bit of context, actually. The context is that I'm a walking disaster who was abandoned by an internet scammer, and now I'm about to humiliate my entire family in front of 147 people, unless you walk into that church and pretend to be my fiancé for the next 40 minutes. Emma took a breath. Maybe an hour, depending on how long Father Johnson decides to extend the sermon about marital fidelity. Silence. Margaret the rose swayed slightly in the breeze, as if even she were shocked. You want, Nathan began slowly, me to marry you, for real. Now, with a church full of people I've never seen in my life. Technically, you just saw Sophie, Emma pointed at her friend, who still seemed to be processing existence at a fundamental level. So that's 146 people you've never seen. Why was she making jokes? Why, in moments of absolute crisis, did Emma Hart's brain decide that humor was the appropriate response? Nathan studied her for a long moment. His eyes, which were such a dark brown they almost looked black, traveled across her face as if reading a particularly interesting book. Why me? He asked simply. Because you're here. Because you were kind to a crazy stranger who talks to flowers. Because I have no one else, and you are literally the only person not in there waiting to witness my social destruction. She swallowed hard. And because you said he didn't deserve my tears. No one has ever said something like that to me before. The wind blew. A petal from Margaret flew between them like a snowflake out of season. And then Nathan Blackwell, mysterious gardener of the Central Church of Savannah, said the most unexpected thing possible. All right. Emma blinked. All right, I'll marry you. You'll what? Sophie finally recovered the ability to speak at normal volume, or above normal, well above. But, Nathan raised a finger. I'm going to need a suit. The suit was in the sacristy. More specifically, it was the suit Father Johnson used at funerals in the 90s, stored in a closet that smelled of mothballs and regrets. It was gray. A gray that at some point in history may have been elegant, but was now simply sad. This is a funeral suit, Sophie observed, holding the piece as if it could disintegrate at any moment. It's a ceremonial suit, Emma corrected, already helping Nathan put on the jacket. The jacket didn't fit. Or rather, it fit in some places and definitely not in others. The shoulders were too tight, the sleeves too short, and there was a missing button that Emma prayed no one would notice. I look like an accountant who was fired 3 times, Nathan observed, looking at himself with an expression that finally showed something beyond absolute calm. It was almost discomfort. Emma found it strangely adorable. You look, she tilted her head, trying to find positive words. You look like someone who has personality, a lot of personality, an impressive amount of poverty, he suggested dryly. I was going to say rustic charm. It's the same thing, just more polite. Sophie let out a hysterical laugh that she immediately turned into a cough when Emma froze her with a look. Listen. Emma positioned herself in front of Nathan, adjusting the crooked tie they had found in the same closet. It was navy blue with yellow polka dots. Polka dots. Yellow. On her wedding day. I know this is crazy. I know you don't know me. I know I seem like a completely unstable person who makes terrible decisions. You forgot internet scammer, he offered. Thank you, very helpful, she sighed. What I'm trying to say is, thank you. For doing this. You didn't have to. Nathan looked at her. Really looked. And for a second, Emma saw something pass behind those calm eyes. Something she couldn't identify. Maybe I needed to, he said quietly. Before she could ask what that meant, the sacristy door flew open with a bang. Emma Catherine Hart. Patricia Hart entered like a hurricane of Chanel No. 5 in maternal indignation. Her hat, because Patricia Hart was the kind of woman who wore hats to weddings, was slightly crooked, which meant the apocalypse was near. "You disappeared for 20 minutes. 20? Aunt Gertrude is saying she saw you running through the garden like a runaway bride. The priest is asking if he should start praying a rosary for your soul." And? Patricia finally noticed Nathan. "Who is this?" "Mom," Emma said with all the calm she could gather, which was approximately 0. "This is Nathan. My fiancé." Patricia looked at Nathan, looked at the suit, looked at the yellow polka dots on the tie, looked at the dirt stains still visible on the hem of the pants because they hadn't had time to clean them. And then she did something Emma had never seen her mother do in 31 years of life. She was completely speechless. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Hart." Nathan extended his hand with impeccable politeness. "Sorry about the appearance. Everything happened at the last minute." Patricia opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. "Emma," she finally said, her voice strangely controlled, "a word. Now." She pulled Emma to a corner while Sophie tried unsuccessfully to fix Nathan's hair, which had a piece of leaf stuck in it. "Who is this man?" Patricia whispered furiously. "Where is Kevin? What happened to Kevin?" "Kevin doesn't exist, Mom." "What do you mean he doesn't exist? I saw the photos. Stolen photos, fake voice, all lies." Emma felt the tears threatening to return, but she swallowed hard. "I was deceived. Like a fool. And now I have 2 options. Go out there and tell everyone I fell for the oldest trick on the internet, or marry this man and have this conversation later, in private, without 147 witnesses." Patricia studied her for a long moment. "How long have you known this gardener?" "Approximately 23 minutes. 23 minutes. And a half." Patricia closed her eyes, took a deep breath. When she opened them again, there was something that almost looked like respect mixed with the exasperation. "You're just like your father." She adjusted her hat, completely crazy, but courageous. And then, to Emma's absolute shock, Patricia walked over to Nathan, adjusted the polka dot tie with efficient fingers, and said, "Let's go before Aunt Gertrude starts singing funeral hymns." The wedding lasted 17 minutes. 17 minutes during which Emma heard the whispers traveling through the church like a wave. "Who is he? Where did he come from? Did you see that suit? Poor Patricia. He looks like a janitor." Emma held Nathan's hand tightly during every word. And he, this strange, calm man she had known for less than an hour, squeezed back. When Father Johnson said, "You may kiss the bride," there was a moment of collective panic. Emma widened her eyes. Nathan raised an eyebrow. And then he leaned in and placed the softest, most respectful kiss she had ever received, on her forehead, a kiss on the forehead, as if she were too precious for anything hasty. The church exploded in even more intense whispers, but Emma barely heard, because something very strange was happening in her chest, something that shouldn't be happening with a man she had known for 53 minutes. They walked down the aisle as husband and wife, legally, really, officially. Emma Hart was now Emma Hart Blackwell. Or maybe just Emma Blackwell. She hadn't even thought about that. Heavens, what kind of mess had she gotten herself into? The church doors opened and the Savannah sunlight bathed them like a divine spotlight. And then Emma saw the car. It was black. No, not just black. It was the kind of black that exists on cars that shone as if polished by perfectionist angels. A Bentley Continental GT, if Emma wasn't mistaken, and she probably was because she knew nothing about cars, but she knew that one there was the kind that appeared in movies where rich people drank champagne in the back seat. A uniformed driver, uniformed, was standing beside it, holding the door open. "What?" Emma began. Nathan gently guided her toward the car. "Nathan," she whispered, "where did this car come from?" "Let's talk inside." He helped her in, the dress taking up half the back seat. The driver closed the door. Through the tinted window, Emma could see the faces of the guests, Sophie with her mouth open, Patricia with her hat finally completely crooked, Aunt Gertrude making the sign of the cross. The car started moving, and Emma turned to the man she had just married. The gardener in a borrowed suit, with a polka dot tie, with a leaf in his hair, sitting comfortably on the leather seat of a car that cost a fortune. "Nathan," she said slowly, "who are you?" He looked at her with those eyes that were too calm, and for the first time since they had met, Emma saw something that looked almost like amusement. "That," he said, "is a long story." The Bentley glided through the streets of Savannah, leaving behind a church full of unanswered questions, and Emma realized with terrifying clarity that maybe, just maybe, she had just married a complete stranger who was much, much more than he appeared to be. The Bentley smelled of imported leather and questionable decisions. Emma was sunk into a seat softer than her own bed, still wearing a wedding dress that now looked like a battlefield of crumpled tulle, next to a man she had known for. She checked the imaginary watch on her wrist, approximately 1 hour and 17 minutes. And to whom she was legally married? In the United States of America. With a certificate and everything. "So," she began, because someone needed to break the silence before she started hyperventilating inside a luxury vehicle. "You were going to tell me about this long story." Nathan looked out the window, watching the tree-lined streets of Savannah pass by like a postcard in motion. "I was," he agreed. "But first, I think you owe me some explanations too." "Fair. Completely fair." Emma took a deep breath and started talking. She told him everything. About Kevin. Who wasn't Kevin? About the 6 months of messages, calls, video calls, always with a broken camera. About how she wanted to believe so badly that someone had chosen her that she ignored every warning sign. About the gifts she sent, the money she lent for an emergency, the plane ticket she bought for him to come meet her family. "He said he was at the airport," Emma murmured, looking at her own hands. 3 hours before the wedding, said the flight was delayed. I believed him. "When did you realize?" "When the flight he said he was on landed, and no one showed up." She let out a humorless laugh. "I called the airline. There was no reservation in his name, on any flight, from anywhere." The silence in the car was heavy, but not uncomfortable. It was the kind of silence that happens when someone is truly listening. "You're not the first person to be deceived like this," Nathan said quietly, "and you won't be the last." "Is that supposed to make me feel better?" "No, it just means you're not foolish. You're human." Emma looked at him sideways. He kept staring out the window, his profile outlined against the golden light of late afternoon. "Your turn," she said. "The car, the long story." Nathan was silent for a moment. "I have some resources." "Resources?" "Yes, resources that include a Bentley with a personal driver." Among other things, Emma waited for more. More didn't come. "That's terribly vague, Nathan." "I know." He finally turned to face her. "Can I ask you something? You just married me to save me from public humiliation. You can ask anything you want. Give me some time to explain everything. It's not that I'm hiding something bad, it's just that." He paused, choosing his words. "It's been a long time since I was just the guy who takes care of the church garden. And I liked that. Being just that." There was something in his voice. Something that sounded like old exhaustion. The kind that comes from carrying an invisible weight for too long. Emma should have insisted, should have demanded answers, but something in that tone made her back off. "All right," she said, "for now." The car stopped. Emma looked out the window and saw her apartment. Ground floor. Small, with a half-abandoned fern in the window that she kept promising to water. "This is it," she said, feeling a wave of completely irrational shame. The man had a Bentley and she lived in a cubicle with pretensions of being a home. "It's cozy," Nathan observed, looking at the facade. "You're very polite." "I really am." The dress wouldn't fit through the door. Emma tried going in frontward, sideways, backward. She tried to crush the layers of tulle. She tried sucking in her stomach, as if that would somehow help. Nothing worked. "Maybe if you," Nathan began. "Don't say anything. Don't say anything." He raised his hands in silent surrender. After 3 minutes of struggle that probably looked like a very confusing modern art performance, Emma finally managed to get through the door with a movement that involved spinning, jumping, and possibly dislocating a rib. "Welcome to my humble home," she announced breathlessly, making a dramatic gesture toward the tiny space. The living room was the size of a generous closet. The kitchen was a corner with culinary pretensions, and there was exactly one couch, an armchair she had found on the sidewalk 3 years ago, and a television that sometimes worked when it wasn't raining. Nathan entered, looking completely out of place with his funeral suit in an apartment that screamed modest salary and big dreams. "You're a teacher?" he asked, noticing the books piled everywhere. "Librarian, elementary school." Emma began to struggle with the zipper of her dress. "Children ages 6 to 10. I read stories, organize books, and occasionally prevent small humans from gluing things where things shouldn't be glued." "Sounds rewarding." "It is, when I'm not removing chewing gum from unexplainable places." The zipper wouldn't budge. "Oh, come on. Want help?" "No." Emma contorted like a satin pretzel. "I can do it. I'm an independent woman, strong, capable." The zipper remained motionless. "Please help me." Nathan approached. Emma felt his fingers on the zipper, gentle, efficient, completely professional. And in 3 seconds she was free. "Thank you," she murmured, holding the dress against her chest and practically running to the bedroom. "I'll be right back. Don't touch anything. Pretend you're not in an apartment the size of a shoebox. There's water in the fridge. Maybe, if I didn't forget to buy some." She closed the bedroom door and leaned against it, breathing as if she had run a marathon. "What are you doing, Emma?" she whispered to herself. "What are you doing?" The wedding dress fell to the floor like a defeated cloud. She looked at it for a long moment. It had been her dream dress, chosen with Sophie on an afternoon of champagne and laughter, adjusted 5 times because she couldn't decide if she wanted the hem shorter or longer, worn exactly once to marry the wrong man in a completely wrong way. "You tried," she said to the dress. "It wasn't your fault." On the other side of the door, there was silence. Nathan was probably questioning every life choice that had brought him to this moment. She couldn't blame him. When Emma emerged from the bedroom, now in sweatpants, an old college t-shirt, and a bun that looked more like a bird's nest, she found Nathan sitting politely on the couch, still wearing the funeral suit. "You can't sleep in that," she pointed at his clothes. "I didn't bring alternatives." "Of course you didn't. Why would you? You were pruning azaleas 2 hours ago." Emma went to the bedroom, rummaged through a drawer, and came back with a huge t-shirt that said Savannah Charity Run 2019 and a pair of sweatpants that had belonged to an ex-boyfriend of generous proportions. "Bathroom is that way. Towels in the cabinet. The shower takes a while to warm up. Don't judge the rubber duck, he helps me think." Nathan took the clothes without commenting on the duck. Point for him. While he was in the bathroom, Emma threw herself into the sidewalk-bound armchair and stared at the ceiling. "Okay," she said to the lamp. "Here's the plan. Did you hear, Miss Lamp? It's simple. 6 months. Just 6 months." The lamp didn't respond, but Emma continued anyway. "We stay married on paper. He stays here because if he leaves now everyone will know it was a farce. Occasional public appearances. Then we divorce amicably, make up some story about irreconcilable differences, and move on with our lives. Easy. Simple. No complications." The bathroom door opened. Nathan came out wearing the Charity Run t-shirt and the ex-boyfriend's sweatpants, his hair damp from the shower, his feet bare on the cold floor. And Emma realized with inconvenient clarity that he was absurdly handsome. Like, irritatingly handsome. The kind of handsome that made women trip on curbs and forget their own names. "You were talking to the lamp," he observed, sitting on the couch. "That's Miss Lamp. She's a good listener. Almost as good as Margaret." A ghost of a smile crossed his face. It was the second non-neutral expression Emma had seen on him, and for some reason it felt like a victory. "So," she straightened her posture, "we need to talk about logistics." "Logistics?" "Yes, this marriage, this situation." Emma gestured vaguely between the two of them. "I was thinking 6 months." 6 months, he repeated. "Enough time to convince everyone we tried to make it work. Not so long that it complicates things too much. Then, amicable divorce, we move on. No one needs to know the truth." Nathan studied her with that calm gaze she was already beginning to recognize. "And during these 6 months? You stay here. Separate rooms, obviously. You sleep on the couch, I stay in the bedroom. Public appearances when necessary. Dinner at my mother's house occasionally, to keep up appearances." She paused. "I know this is asking a lot. You can refuse. You can leave right now and I'll make up some story about you being a secret agent who was called away on an urgent mission." "Secret agent? It would be more interesting than the truth." Nathan was silent for a moment that felt like an eternity. Then he said, "All right." Emma blinked. all right? 6 months, separate rooms, public appearances. He tilted his head. But I have one condition. What? I cook. You clearly survive on frozen food. He pointed to the pile of empty packages near the trash that Emma hadn't realized was visible. That needs to change. That's not. I have a balanced diet. Frozen pizza, instant noodles, and something I hope is lasagna, but I'm not sure. Okay, point for you. They looked at each other for a moment. Two strangers who had just agreed to share a life for 6 months. It was crazy. It was completely absurd. It was inexplicably, almost comforting. I'll get you a blanket, Emma said, standing up. While she arranged the couch, pillow from the closet, extra blanket, the minimum of dignity she could offer, Nathan went to the window. He looked outside for a moment, his face illuminated by the streetlight. Emma, he said quietly. Yes? Thank you for trusting me. There was something in the way he said it, something that suggested trust wasn't something he received often. You married me without knowing me. I think we're equally crazy. He let out a soft laugh. It was the first time she had heard him laugh, and the sound was unexpected. Warm. Emma went to the bedroom, closed the door, and threw herself on the bed. Tomorrow she would deal with the consequences, with the family's questions, with the logistics of sharing a tiny apartment with a mysterious stranger who had an inexplicable Bentley and laughed in a way that did strange things to her stomach. Tomorrow. She was almost asleep when she heard it. It was low, almost inaudible. Coming from the living room, Nathan was on the phone. Emma couldn't hear the words, but she could hear the tone. It was different. It wasn't the calm, gentle voice he had used with her all day. It was the voice of someone used to giving orders. No, I'll call tomorrow. Cancel everything until further notice. No, you don't need to send anyone. I'm fine. Yes, Blackwell out. Blackwell out, like a code. Like something someone would say at the end of an official transmission. Emma lay staring at the dark ceiling, her heart beating a little faster. Who was Nathan Blackwell, really? The next morning, Emma woke up to the smell of pancakes. Pancakes. In her apartment. The apartment where the only thing she had ever prepared for breakfast was cereal. And even then, the cereal sometimes almost became a strange experiment because she had the gift of getting distracted and letting the milk boil over while looking for a clean spoon. For a moment of absolute panic, she thought she had been teleported to someone else's home. A functional person. A person who woke up early and made real breakfast. Then the memory of the previous day came back like a runaway train. The wedding, the gardener, the Bentley, the Blackwell out. She had a husband who apparently made pancakes at, she looked at the clock, 6:43 in the morning. On a Sunday, Emma dragged herself out of bed with all the grace of a human creature in battery-saving mode. Her hair was doing things that defied the laws of physics. There was a pillow mark stamped on her cheek that would probably stay there until noon. And she was wearing an old t-shirt that said, "Cats are better than people." A gift from Sophie after a particularly dramatic breakup. Great first morning impression for a husband. Husband. The words still felt wrong in her head, like wearing socks with sandals. Technically possible, but fundamentally strange. She opened the bedroom door and stopped. Nathan was in the kitchen, if that tiny corner could be called a kitchen. He was wearing the charity-run t-shirt she had lent him, the loose sweatpants, and was barefoot. His hair still slightly messy from sleep. But that wasn't what made her stop. It was the fact that he was talking to the fern. "You need more light," he was saying quietly, turning the pot toward the window. "Who put you in this dark corner? This is practically plant neglect." The fern obviously didn't respond, but Emma could swear it looked happier. "You're talking to my plant," she said, her voice still hoarse from sleep. Nathan turned, completely calm about having been caught talking to vegetation. "You talk to roses, lamps, and wedding dresses. I thought conversations with plants were allowed in this house." That's fair." Emma approached, sniffing the air. "You made pancakes?" "And coffee." He pointed to the coffee maker, which was producing sounds Emma had never heard before. Happy sounds. Sounds of a coffee maker that was finally being used correctly. "Did you know your coffee maker still had the instruction manual inside the water compartment? That explains the strange taste. It explains a lot of things, actually." Emma sat on the kitchen stool, the only available seat besides the couch, and watched as Nathan stacked golden pancakes on a plate. They were round, perfectly round, as if he had used a compass. "What time did you wake up?" she asked. 5. 5 in the morning, on a Sunday. I like mornings. That's disturbing. He placed the plate in front of her. 3 perfect pancakes, a drizzle of honey, banana slices arranged artistically. Emma looked at the plate, then at Nathan, then at the plate again. "You're some kind of soap opera villain, aren't you?" she said. "This is too good. Nobody is like this. Any minute now you'll reveal a dramatic secret and mysteriously disappear. If I were a villain, I wouldn't have used the banana." He poured himself coffee naturally. "Organic bananas are expensive." Emma laughed, a real laugh, the kind that escapes before you can stop it. Nathan looked satisfied. It was hard to tell with him. His face was like a lake on a windless day, calm surface, unknown depths. She cut a piece of pancake and put it in her mouth, and then made a sound that probably shouldn't be made in public. "Oh my goodness. Good. This isn't a pancake. This is poetry in dough form. This is art. This is..." She cut another piece. "Why are you a gardener?" "Because plants don't ask for resumes." There was something there, something behind the joke. But before Emma could investigate, the toaster made a noise. Not a normal toaster noise. A noise of a toaster possessed by unknown kitchen forces. Emma almost fell off the stool. "What was that?" "Your toaster." "My toaster doesn't make that noise. It does when you actually put bread in it." Emma looked at the appliance, which was now spitting out 2 perfectly toasted slices of bread as if nothing had happened. "Miss Toaster," she said severely, pointing her fork at the appliance, "we need to talk. How many years have I lived here?" 3, and you've never done this before. Why are you trying to give me a mini emotional breakdown right now, when I have a witness?" The toaster remained in insolent silence. "You named the toaster?" Nathan asked, picking up the slices. "All the appliances have names. The coffee maker is Miss Coffee, the refrigerator is Frigette, and the microwave is Roberto." "Roberto? He has Roberto energy." Nathan considered this for a moment. "Makes sense," he said finally. And Emma realized with a start that he wasn't being sarcastic. He really thought it made sense to give names to appliances. Who was this man? After breakfast, during which Emma ate 5 pancakes and felt no shame, she decided it was time to be a minimally decent host. "You need clothes," she announced. "You can't go around in the charity-run t-shirt for the rest of your life." "I have clothes. In my apartment." "You have an apartment? Where did you think I lived? In the church garden?" Emma opened her mouth, closed it. "I hadn't thought about that, actually." "Clearly. Hey, I was in survival mode. You can't think about housing logistics when you're marrying a stranger to avoid public humiliation." Nathan almost smiled. "Almost. I need to get some things," he said. "Clothes, basic items. I can go now and be back in a few hours." "Sure. Yes, makes sense." Emma stood up, tripped over her own foot, hit her hip on the corner of the table, and knocked over the salt shaker. "I'm fine. Everything under control." Nathan watched the slow-motion disaster with an unreadable expression. "Are you sure?" "Absolutely. Go ahead, get your things. I'll stay here, trying not to destroy the apartment while you're gone." He nodded, picked up the too formal for a Sunday suit that was folded on the couch. Apparently he was going to leave dressed like that, and walked to the door. Then he stopped, turned around. "Emma?" "Yes?" "Thank you for the company." She smiled, surprised. "You're welcome." And he left. Emma stood in the middle of the living room, surrounded by spilled salt and pancakes digesting in her stomach, feeling something strange in her chest. "Frigette," she said to the refrigerator, "I'm in trouble." The refrigerator hummed in response. It was the closest to agreement Emma was going to get. Nathan came back 4 hours later. Not in the Bentley. Apparently, he had some notion that a car like that would draw too much attention in Emma's neighborhood. He came in a regular Uber, carrying 2 suitcases and a cardboard box. "You packed fast," Emma observed, helping him carry things inside. "I travel light." "This is travel in light?" She pointed at the suitcases. "Compared to what I could bring, yes." Again that strange phrase. "Compared to what I could bring." As if he had much more, as if he were holding back. Emma let it go. For now, while Nathan arranged his things in the corner of the living room they had designated as his area, she found herself observing the items he took out of the box. Books, many books, about gardening, but also about cryptography, security systems. There was one called Network Architecture, Principles and Practices. Light reading? She asked, pointing at the book. Nathan looked where she was pointing. Old hobby. Gardening and network security. Interesting combination. I have many interests. He put the book away quickly. Too quickly, perhaps. Emma filed the information away mentally. The rest of the day passed in a strangely comfortable domesticity. They had lunch together, delivery leftovers that Emma had in the fridge, which Nathan looked at with an expression of mild internal suffering. They watched television in friendly silence. Emma graded library assignments while Nathan read one of his many books. It was normal. Bizarrely normal for two people who had met less than 30 hours ago. When night fell, Emma yawned and stretched on the couch. I'm going to sleep, she announced. Tomorrow I have work, children to educate, books to organize, chewing gum to remove from unexpected places. Good night, Emma. Good night, Nathan. She went to the bedroom. She was almost closing the door when she stopped. Hey, Nathan, yes? The pancakes were really very good. He looked at her, and this time the smile reached his eyes. Tomorrow I'll make waffles. Emma felt her face heat up, which was ridiculous. Completely ridiculous. It was just a promise of waffles, nothing special. Okay, she said, her voice coming out strangely high-pitched. Waffles? Nice. Good night. She closed the door too fast, leaned against it, breathed. On the other side, she heard Nathan let out a soft laugh. He knew. The man knew the effect he had. Emma went to sleep with her face still warm, thinking about pancakes, cryptography books, and smiles that reached the eyes. And for the first time since Kevin, who didn't exist, had messed up her life, she fell asleep smiling. 1 week had passed since Emma Hart became Emma Hart Blackwell. 7 days of morning pancakes, conversations with appliances witnessed without judgment, and a disturbing amount of comfort in sharing space with a man she technically didn't know. Nathan cooked. Emma tried to help and usually made things worse. He took care of the fern, which now looked like a plant from a fertilizer commercial instead of a war survivor. She continued talking to Miss Toaster, Frigette, and Roberto. He pretended this was completely normal. It was strange. It was good. It was absolutely terrifying. But today wasn't the day to think about that. Today was the day to face something much worse than confused feelings. Today was the day to have lunch at Les Magnolia. Are you sure this is necessary? Nathan asked, adjusting the collar of the shirt Emma had bought for him the day before. Navy blue. Simple. No yellow polka dots. My mother made the reservation 3 days ago. If we cancel, she'll show up here personally to verify if you exist or if I invented an imaginary husband. She knows I exist. She saw me at the wedding. She saw you for 17 minutes wearing a suit that looked like it had been dug up from 1987. Emma was struggling with the earring clasp, which refused to cooperate. She needs to see you in a normal social context. Talk. Ask invasive questions about your family history and your intentions with her daughter. Charming. Welcome to the Hart clan. The earring finally gave way. At the same time, the clasp broke and the piece flew in a dramatic arc, bounced off the dresser, ricocheted off the lamp, and landed inside the glass of water on the nightstand. Emma looked at the earring slowly sinking. Nathan looked at the earring slowly sinking. I'll wear another pair, she said with all the dignity she could muster. Wise decision. La Magnolia was the kind of restaurant that existed to make ordinary people feel inadequate. Immaculate white tablecloths, crystal glasses that probably needed their own insurance, waiters who walked as if they were at a very elegant funeral, and a manager, Richard something, who looked at customers as if he were evaluating their net worth by their haircut. Emma hated this place, but Patricia Hart loved it, and what Patricia Hart loved, the Hart family frequented. Emma, dear. Patricia stood up from the table when they approached, kissing her daughter on the cheek, and then turning to Nathan with an analytical look. Nathan, I'm glad you came. Thank you for the invitation, Mrs. Hart. Patricia? She indicated the chairs. Sit down. I already ordered sparkling water for everyone. Sparkling water. Because regular water was for people who didn't have lunch at La Magnolia. Emma sat down, trying not to think about how many ways she could embarrass herself in the next 2 hours. Nathan sat beside her, looking completely at ease, which was irritating, considering he was in hostile territory. That's when Richard appeared. "Mrs. Hart," he approached with that oily smile Emma knew well. "What a pleasure to see you again, and young Emma too." His eyes slid to Nathan, and the smile wavered almost imperceptibly. "And the companion. The companion. Not the husband. Not Mr. Blackwell. The companion." Emma felt her blood rise. "My husband," she corrected, her voice sharper than she intended. "Nathan Blackwell." Richard made a sound that could be interpreted as acknowledgement or dismissal, depending on how generous you were feeling. Of course, of course." He handed out the menus with an unnecessary flourish. "Today's special is salmon with balsamic reduction. I highly recommend it." A pause. "Although the chicken is also affordable." Affordable. The implication was crystal clear. Clearer than the ridiculous glasses on the table. Nathan didn't react. His face remained serene, his eyes calm like a lake on a windless day. "The salmon sounds great," he said simply. Richard nodded with a little smile and walked away. Emma wanted to shove a napkin in his face. "That man is unbearable," Patricia whispered, surprising Emma. "But the food is too good for us to stop coming." Lunch proceeded with questions Emma had already expected. What did Nathan do? Gardening, for now. Where was he from? From the area. Where did they meet? At church, technically true. How long did they date? Long enough, technically a lie, but delivered so naturally that Emma almost believed it. Nathan answered everything calmly, polite, even charming, in a discreet way. But Emma noticed the looks, the other tables, the whispers, the little laughs disguised behind wine glasses. She knew those people. She had grown up in this town. She knew each of them was cataloging every detail. Nathan's simple shirt, the cheap watch he wore, the way he held the silverware with competence, but without ostentation. They were judging, and they thought he wasn't good enough. Emma felt something tighten in her chest. Not for herself, for him. For the strange gentleman who had entered her life a week ago and was now being silently dissected by a room full of walking snobbery. "Emma." Nathan's voice was low, just for her. "It's okay." "No, it's not. I know what they're doing." He looked at her with those eyes that were too calm. "It doesn't matter. It matters to me." Something changed in his face, softened. For a second, Emma saw beyond the calm surface, saw surprise, perhaps, or something warmer. "Then," he said quietly, "thank you for that." Lunch ended. The bill was paid. Patricia insisted, because Patricia Hart always paid the bill at La Magnolia. It was a matter of social territory. They stood up to leave. And that's when Emma tripped. Not on anything specific, just on her own feet, because apparently motor coordination was a luxury she couldn't afford. Her purse flew, hit the table next to them, and knocked over a wine glass that shattered on the floor into a million crystalline pieces. The entire restaurant stopped. Richard appeared in seconds, the oily smile now decidedly cold. "Oh, what an accident," he said in a way that made it clear he thought it was anything but. Emma wanted to disappear. She wanted to dig a hole in the marble floor and hide forever. "Let's go," Nathan said calmly, placing his hand on her back. We were already leaving. He guided her toward the door with gentle firmness. Patricia followed behind, shooting withering looks at anyone who dared to comment. They stepped out onto the sidewalk, and that's when the Bentley appeared. Black, gleaming, absolutely absurd on that Savannah street. A uniformed driver got out of the front seat, walked around the vehicle, and opened the rear door with military efficiency. Emma froze. Nathan continued walking toward the car as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "Wait," she began. "What?" The restaurant door opened behind them. Richard had come out, probably to deliver one last jab, but he didn't say anything, because he was looking at the car, at the driver, at the discreet emblem on the side that Emma hadn't noticed before. Richard's face went white. "That's," he stuttered, "that's the car of the owner of." The driver, without changing his expression, simply said, "Mr. Blackwell, shall we go?" The silence that followed was deafening. Nathan didn't even look at Richard. He just guided Emma to the car, helped her in with her dress and all, and got in after her. The door closed. The Bentley began to move. Through the rear window, Emma could see Richard still standing on the sidewalk, mouth open, face the color of sour milk. Patricia beside him had a little smile Emma had never seen before. And then they turned the corner and La Magnolia disappeared. Emma turned to Nathan. He was sitting calmly, looking out the window, as if nothing extraordinary had happened. "Mr. Blackwell?" she said slowly. He sighed. "I was going to tell you." "Tell me what exactly?" Emma could feel her heart pounding in her ears. "Nathan, who are you?" He finally looked at her, and for the first time since they had met, she saw something beyond the calm. She saw vulnerability. "That," he said, "is a conversation that's going to need more than a car ride." The Bentley glided through the streets of Savannah in silence. Not the comfortable silence Emma had learned to appreciate during the past week. This was a loaded silence. Heavy. The kind of silence that happens before storms and revelations that change everything. Emma looked at Nathan. Nathan looked out the window. The driver looked at the road as if his life depended on pretending he wasn't hearing anything. "James," Nathan finally said, "take us to the overlook." "Yes, sir." James. The driver had a name. Of course he did. And of course Nathan knew his name, because apparently Nathan was the kind of person who had drivers with names and Bentleys with emblems and secrets the size of Texas. 10 minutes later, the car stopped. Emma looked out the window and lost her breath. They were at an overlook she didn't even know existed. Savannah stretched out below like a living painting, the centuries-old oak trees, the historic rooftops, the river winding in the distance. The afternoon sun painted everything in shades of gold and amber. It was the kind of view that appeared on postcards and in dreams. "I come here when I need to think," Nathan said quietly. "It's peaceful." He got out of the car. Emma followed, tripping slightly on the curb because apparently her body had decided that motor coordination was optional during moments of emotional stress. Nathan pretended not to notice. A gentleman to the end. They walked to a stone bench facing the view. They sat side by side, close enough that Emma could feel his warmth, far enough that the space between them felt like an ocean. For a long moment, no one said anything. Then Nathan sighed. "This is what I wanted to avoid. The overlook, the conversation." He ran his hand through his hair, a gesture Emma had never seen him make. A human gesture. Nervous. "I liked being invisible, Emma. I liked being just the guy who takes care of the flowers." "But you're not just that." "No." He looked at her. "I'm not." The wind blew gently, carrying the scent of magnolias from some nearby garden. "Tell me," Emma said, "everything." And he told her. Nathan Blackwell had been a genius at 22. Not the kind of genius that appears in movies, eccentric, disheveled, socially incapable. He was the kind of genius who saw patterns where others saw chaos, who understood systems the way other people understood breathing. At 23, he founded a cybersecurity company. Small at first. Him and 2 college friends, working in a garage that smelled of reheated coffee and academic desperation. At 25, the company had 50 employees. At 28, 500. At 30, one of the biggest technology corporations in the world offered $5 billion to buy it. $5 billion, Emma repeated, because her brain was having difficulty processing numbers that size. With a B as in billion, with a B as in billion. Dollars. Emma opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. "I let you sleep on my couch," she finally said. "The couch I found on the sidewalk 3 years ago. You slept on a sidewalk couch while being a billionaire. It was a comfortable couch." "Nathan, what? I?" She gestured frantically between the two of them. "Why didn't you say anything?" He looked at the view again. The sun was beginning to set, tinting the sky orange and pink, because when people know, everything changes. His voice was quiet, tired, old in a way that didn't match his 33 years. "After I sold the company, I became a thing. Not a person. A thing that everyone wanted a piece of. Investors wanted my money. Journalists wanted my story. People I thought were friends wanted," he paused, "what everyone wanted. Access, connections, opportunities." Emma remained silent, listening. "I wasn't sleeping, wasn't eating right. I had a schedule that someone else controlled for me because I couldn't control anything anymore." He let out a humorless laugh. "I had $5 billion and felt more trapped than when I had nothing." "What did you do?" "I disappeared." The word hung in the air between them. "I transferred management to people I trusted, moved to Savannah because it was far enough from everything, bought properties through companies, never in my name, and started taking care of the church garden." "Why? The garden, specifically?" Nathan looked at his own hands. Hands that Emma had seen take care of roses, make pancakes, adjust the polka dot tie of a borrowed suit. Because plants don't want anything from you except water and sunlight. They don't care how much money you have. They don't try to take advantage. They just exist, grow, bloom. He shrugged. It was the only place where I could breathe. Emma felt something tighten in her chest. Not pity. Nathan didn't need pity. Something more like recognition, understanding. And the restaurant? She asked. Richard seemed to recognize the car. I own the Magnolia. Nathan paused. And the building where it is, and about 90% of the businesses in town more or less. Emma blinked. 90%, approximately, of the entire small city? Nathan, that's not. She stopped, breathed. Okay, all right, 90%, normal, completely normal. I'm married to someone who owns 90% of Savannah. Why would I be surprised by anything at this point? She was talking too fast, gesturing too much. Her brain was in total overload mode. Are you angry? Nathan asked, his voice cautious. Emma stopped gesturing. Thought about the question. Really thought. Was she angry? He had lied. Technically. By omission, at least. He had let her think he was an ordinary gardener while he slept on her sidewalk couch and ate her frozen pizza. But no, she finally said, I'm not angry. Nathan looked genuinely surprised. No? Do you know why I was standing at that altar, Nathan? Emma turned to face him completely. Because a man spent 6 months lying to me, building a fantasy, making me believe in something that never existed just to take advantage. She took a deep breath. Do you know what the difference is between him and you? You lied to take advantage of me. You lied to protect yourself. Those are completely different lies. The wind blew again. A leaf landed in Emma's hair and she removed it absently, without breaking eye contact. Kevin made me feel special so he could use me. You made me feel special by being you. The guy who gives names to roses and makes perfect pancakes and sleeps on sidewalk couches without complaining. She gave a half smile. The money doesn't change that. Nathan was silent for a long moment. Then he did something Emma didn't expect. He laughed, a real laugh, soft, surprised, almost relieved. The sound did strange things to her heart. You're a very unusual person, Emma Hart. Hart Blackwell, technically. Hart Blackwell, he agreed. And there was something in the way he said the name. Something warm. Something that made the air between them feel electrified. The sun was almost setting now. The sky had become an explosion of colors that not even the best painters could reproduce. Emma realized that at some point they had moved closer together on the bench, that their shoulders were almost touching, that she could see the different shades of brown in his eyes. And now? She asked quietly. Nathan looked at her in a way she had never seen before. It was no longer the distant calm of the mysterious gardener. It was something deeper, more vulnerable, more real. Now, he said, I think we start for real. Emma's heart raced, and as the sun disappeared behind the centuries-old trees of Savannah, she realized something terrifying. This fake marriage was starting to feel dangerously real. 2 weeks had passed since the conversation at the Overlook. 2 weeks that changed absolutely everything without changing almost anything. Nathan still slept on the couch, technically. Emma still woke up to the smell of pancakes, always. They still pretended to the world that they were a real couple, supposedly. But something had changed. It was the looks that lasted a second longer. The fingers that touched accidentally when passing the sugar. The nights watching television, where the distance between them on the couch progressively decreased until at some point her shoulder was leaning against his and neither of them mentioned it. Emma was in trouble. Serious trouble. Trouble of the I'm developing real feelings for my fake billionaire husband who gives to roses variety. You're freaking out again, Sophie said over the phone. I can hear you freaking out through the line. I'm not freaking out, Emma. Okay, maybe a small freak out. Tiny, almost imperceptible. What did he do this time? Emma looked toward the kitchen, where Nathan was preparing dinner while talking to the fern about the importance of indirect light. He's talking to my plant about photosynthesis. And that's bad? It's adorable, Sophie. It's terribly, irritatingly, inconveniently adorable. Emma lowered her voice. He matches his socks. Who matches their socks? And yesterday he fixed the drawer that had been stuck for 2 years. without me asking, and this morning he left a sticky note on the coffee maker wishing me a good morning with a drawing of a flower. Emma. What? You're in love with your husband. I'm not. Yes, you are. Maybe a little bit. Sophie made a sound that was half laugh, half victory cry. I knew it. I knew it since the wedding. When he hissed your forehead, I thought, oh, she's done for. You thought I was crazy for marrying a stranger. Both things can be true at the same time. Emma sighed, sinking deeper into the couch. What if he doesn't feel the same? What if for him it's still just an arrangement? 6 months and goodbye, thanks for the pancakes, good luck with your life. Emma, the man talks to your fern. So? Nobody talks to another person's plant, unless they're planning to stick around to watch it grow. Before Emma could process this unexpected wisdom, Nathan appeared at the living room door. Dinner's ready. He paused, noticing the phone. Sophie? He knows it's me? Sophie squeaked from the other end of the line. You already have the familiarity to know who's calling. Emma, this is serious. Goodbye, Sophie. Call me later. I want details, all the details. Emma hung up. Nathan was watching her with that calm expression she still couldn't fully read, even after 3 weeks of living together. Everything okay? Everything's great. She stood up too fast, hit her shin on the coffee table, and swallowed the groan of pain. Perfect. Never been better. What's for dinner? After dinner, lemon chicken that should have been illegal for being so good. Nathan did something unexpected. Wear something comfortable, he said. We're going out. Going out? Now? It's 8 at night. I know. Where to? Surprise. Emma hated surprises. No, correction, Emma loved surprises, but surprises made her nervous. And when she got nervous, bad things happened, like tripping, or talking too much, or knocking over objects of sentimental value. But something in Nathan's look made her swallow her objections. 20 minutes later, she was in the passenger seat of the Bentley, still getting used to that, watching the streets of Savannah pass by in the darkness. Are you going to give me any hint? She asked. No. None? It's a place that means something. That's not a hint, that's a fortune cookie phrase. Nathan almost smiled. Almost. The car stopped. Emma looked out the window, and her heart leaped. It was the church. The central church of Savannah. And more specifically, it was the side garden. The garden where everything had begun. Nathan, come. He got out of the car and walked around to open her door. He extended his hand. Emma held it, feeling his fingers intertwine with hers as if they belonged there. The garden looked different at night. String lights had been hung between the trees. When had he done this? Creating a sky of artificial stars that blended with the real stars above. The roses were closed for the night, but their perfumes still permeated the air. And there she was, Margaret, the particularly large red rose that Emma had chosen to vent to on the worst day of her life. You planned this, Emma whispered. I did. The lights, I put them up myself, this afternoon while you were at work. Nathan, She couldn't form sentences. Her brain had decided to take a vacation at the most inconvenient moment possible. Why? He guided her to the stone bench. The same bench where she had fallen seated after knocking over the gnome, the watering can, and the ceramic frog in sequence. They sat side by side, just like at the Overlook. But this time, he didn't let go of her hand. Emma, he began, and there was something in his voice she had never heard. Something that sounded like nervousness. Nathan Blackwell, the calmest man in the universe, was nervous. I need to tell you something. Okay. When you asked me to marry you in this garden a few months ago, I said yes because... He paused. Honestly, I don't know why. You were a stranger. It was crazy. It made no sense. Romance of the century, Emma murmured. Let me finish. She closed her mouth. I said yes and spent the first night on your couch thinking I had completely lost my mind. He looked at her. But then you woke up the next day and talked to the toaster as if it were the most normal thing in the world, and argued with the dress zipper, and offered me ex-boyfriend clothes without any embarrassment. And I thought maybe sanity wasn't that important after all. Emma felt her eyes burn. We did everything backwards, Emma. Got married before we knew each other, lived together before dating, shared a life before sharing secrets. He squeezed her hand, and somewhere in the middle of all this confusion, I fell in love with you. Her heart stopped, restarted, raced. Nathan? I don't want it to be fake anymore. He turned to face her completely. I don't want to count the days until the 6 months are over anymore. I don't want to sleep on the couch anymore, knowing you're on the other side of that door. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. Emma forgot how to breathe. We got married before knowing each other, he repeated, opening the box to reveal a ring. Simple, delicate, perfect. Dated before we liked each other. How about doing the opposite now? Tears were streaming down Emma's face. She hadn't even noticed when they had started. Will you marry me for real, Emma Hart? And then, because Emma was Emma, she did the most Emma thing possible. She started laughing and crying at the same time, sobbing and laughing like a person who had clearly lost control of all basic emotional functions. Is that a yes, or should I be worried? Nathan asked, genuinely uncertain. It's a yes, she managed to say between sobs. It's a yes. You ridiculously perfect man who makes pancakes and talks to plants and shows up in a Bentley and makes me cry in gardens. Technically, this is the second time you've cried in this garden. Nathan. Sorry, wrong moment for statistics. Emma pulled him by the shirt and did the only thing that made sense in that moment. She kissed him. For real, not on the forehead. Not polite, not respectful. A kiss that said everything she couldn't put into words. When they separated, both were breathless. That was... Nathan began. If you say adequate, I swear. I was going to say perfect. Emma laughed again, a wet, messy, completely happy laugh. He slid the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. Now we're a real couple, she said, looking at the ring glittering under the string lights. Pretending it's fake. That's confusing. Very. I love it. Nathan smiled. A real smile. Complete. Without reservations. Me too. They stayed there for a while longer, sitting on the stone bench, holding hands under the false and true stars. And somewhere behind them, Emma could swear Margaret swayed gently in the breeze. As if approving. The happiness seemed complete. Seemed permanent. Seemed impossible to destroy. But somewhere, in a phone Emma had silenced and forgotten in her purse, a message was waiting. A message from an unknown number. A message that said only, Hi Emma, remember me? We need to talk about this marriage of yours. K. A week of genuine happiness was something Emma Hart didn't know could exist. 7 days since the garden, since the proposal, since the kiss that still made her cheeks warm when she remembered it. 7 days of waking up knowing that Nathan Blackwell was her real husband, not just on paper. He still slept on the couch. By his choice, not hers. We're doing things backwards, remember? He had said on the first night after the engagement. We got married first, got engaged after. Now we're going to date, properly. Date while living together? Do you have a better suggestion? Emma didn't, and she secretly found all that old-fashioned chivalry devastatingly charming. But the dynamic had changed. Now there were good morning kisses and good night kisses. And you look beautiful even with toothpaste on your chin kisses. And stop stealing my pancake kisses. And kisses for absolutely no reason other than, I wanted to. It was ridiculous. It was wonderful. It was completely unsustainable without something going wrong, because Emma knew her own life. The first real conflict happened on Tuesday. Emma came home from work, threw her purse on the couch, kicked her shoes into opposite corners of the room, and left her coat hanging on the door handle because the coat rack was too far away. When she turned around, Nathan was standing at the kitchen entrance, looking at the shoes, then at the coat, then at her. What? Emma asked. Nothing. You're making a face. I'm not making any face. Nathan, I've known you for a month. That's your something is bothering me, but I'm too polite to say it face. He sighed. The shoes. What about the shoes? There, he gestured vaguely, in different places. Emma looked at the shoes. One was near the couch. The other had mysteriously ended up under the dining table. So? So yesterday one was in the bathroom. In the bathroom, Emma. How does a shoe end up in the bathroom? I don't know, Nathan. Shoes are mysterious creatures with minds of their own. Shoes don't have minds of their own. You don't know that. You give names to roses. You can't talk about what objects do or don't do. They stared at each other for a moment, and then they started laughing. This is ridiculous, Emma said between laughs. Completely, Nathan agreed, still laughing. Our first couple fight was about shoes. Technically, it was about organization. Technically, you're obsessed with order. Technically, you're a walking hurricane. Emma threw a pillow at him. He caught it midair with irritatingly good reflexes. "I'll try to be more organized," she said. "No, you won't." "No, I won't. But it's cute that you believe in me." Nathan crossed the room in 3 steps, held her face with both hands, and kissed her until she completely forgot what shoes were. On Thursday, Patricia invited them both to dinner, which meant, translating from Patricia Hart language, "I want to interrogate your husband in a controlled environment where he can't escape." "She's going to ask me questions," Nathan said in the car, showing a rare expression of slight apprehension. "Many questions," Emma confirmed. "About?" "Everything. Childhood, education, future plans, whether you intend to give me grandchildren, your opinion on fiscal policy." "Fiscal policy? My mother has varied interests." Dinner started civilized. Patricia served roast chicken, her specialty, and asked polite questions about Nathan's work. He explained, in a heavily edited way, that he worked with investments and consulting. It wasn't a lie, just not the complete truth. Emma was starting to relax when the incident happened. She was gesturing while telling a story about a student who had tried to convince her that The Little Prince was an astronomy manual when her elbow hit the wine glass dead on. The red liquid flew in slow motion, directly toward Patricia. Emma watched, horrified, as her social life passed before her eyes. But then Nathan moved. With reflexes that Emma didn't know humans possessed, he grabbed a napkin and intercepted most of the wine midair. What remained hit the tablecloth, not Patricia. The silence that followed was absolute. "You," Patricia began, looking at Nathan as if seeing him for the first time. "You just saved my Diane von Furstenberg dress." "It was just reflexes," Nathan said modestly. "This dress is 15 years old. It's discontinued. It's irreplaceable." "Mom, I'm so sorry. I didn't." "Emma, dear, be quiet." Patricia was still looking at Nathan. "Young man, you just earned a lot of points with me." "Thank you?" "Don't thank me yet. I said points, not complete approval, but we're getting there." She stood up. "I'll get dessert." "Nathan, do you like apple pie?" "It's my favorite." "Great. Emma never learned how to make pie. Maybe you can teach her." And so, thanks to a strategically positioned napkin, Nathan Blackwell won over a little more of Patricia Hart. On the way back home, Emma couldn't stop smiling. "She liked you. She liked my reflexes. It's the same thing in her vocabulary." Emma squeezed his hand in the car seat. "Thank you for saving the dress, and for enduring the interrogation, and for being here with me." Nathan brought her hand to his lips and kissed her fingers. "There's nowhere else I'd rather be." Emma's heart did a flip. "You're irritatingly romantic, you know that?" "You've mentioned that." "I'll keep mentioning it until you stop. Then I'll keep doing it." They arrived home in a cocoon of happiness so perfect that Emma should have been suspicious. Happiness like this didn't last. Not for her. Not without some disaster lurking. While Nathan went to the bathroom, Emma finally did something she had been putting off all week. She looked at her phone. There were 17 messages from Sophie about the engagement. 3 from her mother about pie recipes. 1 notification about a pharmacy sale. And a message from an unknown number. From a week ago. Emma opened it without thinking, and the world stopped. "Hi Emma, remember me? We need to talk about this marriage of yours." Kevin. Emma's stomach dropped. No. He didn't exist. He was a ghost, a scam, a lie she had left behind on the day a crazy gardener agreed to marry her. But there was his name, or his initial. Waiting, threatening. The phone trembled in her hands. A new message appeared, from the same number. "I know you read it. I'll call tomorrow. Don't tell your little husband, or everyone will find out how this marriage really started." Emma stared at the screen, her heart pounding, her hands cold. The bathroom door opened. "Emma?" Nathan's voice. "Everything okay?" She locked the phone with trembling fingers. "Fine," she said, forcing a smile. "Everything's great." But it wasn't, and she had the horrible feeling that nothing would be for a long time. Emma didn't sleep that night. She lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling, while Kevin's messages flashed in her mind like a broken neon sign. "We need to talk. Don't tell your husband, everyone will find out." Beside her, because after the engagement they had started sharing the bed, even if just for sleeping, Nathan breathed peacefully, at peace. Emma had never been so envious of someone sleeping. The next morning, she got up before him for the first time since they had met. She went to the kitchen. Tried to make coffee. Forgot to add water. The The coffee maker made an exaggerated protest sound, as if deeply offended. "Miss Coffee, for goodness sake," Emma whispered. "This is not the time for drama." The phone vibrated in her pocket. She almost dropped the mug. Unknown number. "Good morning, Emma. Have you thought about our conversation? $50,000 and I'll stop bothering you for good. Seems fair, considering I gave you the idea for the marriage. You have 48 hours. $50,000. Emma didn't have $50,000. Emma barely had $500 in her account after paying for the wedding dress she had used to marry another man. The irony was so bitter it seemed to have a taste. "Emma?" She turned around so fast she hit her hip on the counter. The phone flew from her hand, bounced on the counter, and fell into the sink, which, fortunately, was dry. Nathan was standing at the kitchen door, hair messy from sleep, eyes still heavy. "Everything okay?" he asked. "Everything's great." Her voice came out too loud. "Wonderful. Why wouldn't everything be fine on a perfectly ordinary morning?" Nathan watched her for a moment. "You're being strange." "I'm always strange. It's part of my charm. Strange in a different way." "There's no different strange. There's just strange, which is me, your strange wife, making coffee normally." She was talking too fast. She knew it. She couldn't stop. "Do you want pancakes? I can try to make pancakes. They might burn, but I can try. Emma. Or eggs. Eggs are easier, although last time I even managed to mess those up. But, Emma." She stopped. Nathan crossed the kitchen, picked up the phone from the sink, and looked at the screen. Emma's heart sank. "Nathan, I can explain." "Who is Kay?" His voice was calm. Very calm. "Nobody. Spam. Those numbers always trying something." "Emma." He looked up. "Don't lie to me." There was no anger there, no accusation, just a silent sadness that made her resistance crumble. "It's Kevin," she whispered. Nathan didn't move. "The groom who didn't show up? He sent me a message yesterday, and this morning. He wants money." Her voice faltered. "Says he'll spread everything if I don't pay." Silence. "He's trying to pressure you," Nathan said. "I don't know how he found out. I didn't tell anyone. Only Sophie knows." The tears came. "I'm sorry. I should have told you yesterday. I didn't want to ruin everything." "Hey." Nathan held her face carefully. "Breathe." She breathed, trembling. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Shame." The words came out all at once. "Shame for having believed him. Shame that he still has this power over me. Emma, and now he's going to tell my mother, the whole town, everyone that our marriage started wrong. And I don't have that money, Nathan. Look at me." She looked. His eyes were still calm, but there was something different there. Not threat, not fury. It was firmness, clarity. This man deceived you, exposed you, and now he thinks he can corner you. Yes. And you thought you needed to handle this alone. I didn't want to involve you. I'm your husband. His voice was firm. That means no one humiliates you like this with me by your side. "What are you going to do?" she asked. Nathan looked at the phone one more time. "I'm going to make this stop. The right way." He kissed her forehead. "Trust me." And he left the kitchen. Emma stood there, trying to understand how the man of pancakes and roses had suddenly become something so solid, something protective, something that made her feel safe. 2 days passed in a strange silence. Nathan still made pancakes, still kissed Emma good morning, still talked to the fern about proper drainage. But there was something different. Phone calls he answered in another room. Mysterious outings in the middle of the afternoon. Looks at his phone that lasted a second longer. And that calm, that disturbing calm that Emma was beginning to recognize as his version of, "I'm planning something." "You're scheming," she said on the second morning, pointing her fork accusingly at him. "I'm eating pancakes. You're scheming while eating pancakes. That's physically impossible." "Nathan." He looked at her with that unreadable expression. "Do you trust me?" "That's not fair." "It's a simple question." Emma opened her mouth to argue. Closed it. He was right. It was a simple question. And the answer was even simpler. "I trust you," she said quietly. "Then give me one more day. Just one more." She should have insisted. Should have demanded answers. Should have done all the things smart women do in situations like this. Instead, she nodded, and regretted it almost immediately. On the afternoon of the third day, Emma's phone finally went silent. Not the temporary silence of Kevin waiting for a response. The definitive silence of someone who had given up, or realized there was no more room to continue. She checked the unknown number. Nothing. Checked again an hour later. Nothing. She sent a message to Sophie. Kevin stopped tormenting me, out of nowhere. Is this strange? The response came in seconds. Very strange. What did Nathan do? I don't know. How do you not know? He asked me to trust him. Emma, dear, light of my life, go find out. Sophie was right. Of course she was right. Emma couldn't just accept that her problem had disappeared without knowing how or why. She waited for Nathan to come back from yet another of his mysterious outings. He came in at 6 in the evening, looking tired but satisfied, like someone who had finished a particularly complicated project. It's over, he said simply. What's over? Kevin. The problem. Nathan hung his coat on the hook with his irritatingly precise accuracy as always. He won't bother you anymore. Emma felt a chill run down her spine. What did you do? I solved it. Nathan, what did you do? He looked at her for a long moment, then sighed. Kevin Marsh, he began, isn't his real name. His real name is Derek Simmons. He's 38 years old, lives in Florida, and has pulled the same scam on at least 12 other women in the last 3 years. Emma blinked. How did you? I have resources, Emma, and people who know how to use those resources. He sat on the couch, looking suddenly exhausted. He had 2 pending lawsuits in other states, situations that were waiting for someone to connect the dots. I just connected the dots. You turned him into the police? I turned him over to the right lawyers, who forwarded everything to the right authorities. Nathan ran his hand through his hair. He was officially detained this morning. Not because of you specifically. Because of the other victims. Because of the previous scams. You won't even need to testify. Emma should have felt relief, and she did. Somewhere deep down she did. But she also felt something else. You did all of this, she said slowly, without telling me anything. I asked you to trust. You made decisions about my life without consulting me. Nathan was silent. This man was pressuring me, Emma continued, her voice rising. It was my problem, my past, my shame, and you just took control, as if I were a child who can't handle her own messes. Emma, that wasn't. Then what was it? She was standing now without remembering getting up. Because to me, it looked a lot like, I'm the powerful billionaire and I'm going to fix my helpless little wife's life without even asking if she wants that. The word hung in the air between them. Helpless. That was what she was afraid of being in his eyes. What she had spent her entire life fighting not to appear. Nathan stood up. Slowly. Carefully. You're right, he said. Emma blinked. I am? I should have included you. Should have explained what I was doing. Should have asked what you wanted. He took a step toward her. I didn't do any of that because, he paused, because I was scared. Scared? You? Of losing you. His voice was low, raw. When I saw those messages, when I realized someone was trying to expose you like that, I didn't think, I just acted. The way I know how to act, solving problems, cutting risks, protecting what's important to me. I'm not a thing for you to protect, Nathan. I know. He was close now, close enough for her to see the genuine regret in his eyes. I know that, and you have every right to be angry. What I did was... He searched for the word. Controlling, even if the intention was good. Emma felt the anger starting to drain, not completely, but enough. You can't do this again, she said. Make decisions for me, exclude me, treat me like I need to be saved. I know. I'm your partner, not your protégé. I know. If something like this happens again, we solve it together, both of us, as a team. Nathan nodded. As a team, he repeated. There was a moment of silence, the kind that happens when 2 people are recalibrating, finding a new balance. Was he really detained? Emma finally asked. This morning, Nathan almost smiled. Apparently he fell apart when everything finally caught up with him. Really? They said it was pretty pathetic. Emma shouldn't have felt satisfaction at that. It was petty. It was vengeful. She felt it anyway. Okay, she said. This time, I'll let it go. But if you do something like this again, you'll throw my shoes into different rooms of the house. Nathan, I'm being serious. So am I. He held her hand. I made a mistake. You called me out on it. I'll do better. That's how it works, right? That's how real relationships work. Emma looked at his hand in hers, at his tired but sincere face, at the man who had become a silent storm to protect her, even if in the wrong way. That's how it works, she confirmed. He pulled her into a hug. She let him. They stayed like that for a long moment, both just breathing, letting the tension dissolve. "You know what I realized?" Emma murmured against his chest. "What?" "We got married in desperation, got engaged in the garden, but we never had a real ceremony." She pulled back to look at him. "With vows, with intention, with, I don't know, flowers that weren't arranged in total panic." Nathan studied her for a moment. "Are you proposing to me?" "Technically, we're already married." "Technically?" "I'm suggesting," Emma said, feeling her face warm, "that we do it right this time. A real ceremony, small, just the people who matter. No dusty closet suit, no surprise groom, no disasters." "Can you do anything without disaster?" "Probably not, but we can try." Nathan smiled, that smile that reached his eyes, the one she had learned to recognize as rare and precious. "I know the perfect garden," he said. Emma's heart leaped. "Do you think Margaret is available to be a witness again?" "I'm sure she'll love it." Emma laughed. A wet, relieved, completely happy laugh. They had started with a desperate lie in a garden full of roses, and now they were going to end with a truth in the same place where everything began. It was strange. It was perfect. It was completely theirs. 1 week was a short time to organize a wedding. It was also enough time when you had a billionaire fiancé with resources and a best friend who treated event planning like an Olympic sport. "Flowers confirmed," Sophie announced, crossing something off the clipboard she carried everywhere. "Chairs confirmed." Father Johnson confirmed, although he asked 3 times if this time the groom was real. "He's real," Emma said. "I checked. Several times." "Music confirmed, catering confirmed, photographer confirmed." Sophie looked up. "Dress?" Emma was silent. The dress. That was the only item on the list she hadn't been able to resolve. "Emma?" "I haven't decided yet." "The wedding is tomorrow." "I know. You can't get married in jeans." "Technically, I could." "Emma." They were in the apartment, which now seemed too small, with boxes of decorations, guest lists, and a Sophie in war general mode. Nathan had been strategically kicked out to do groom things, which apparently meant being at the church garden supervising the setup. "It's just that," Emma began, then stopped. "The original dress, the one from the first wedding, it's still in my closet." Sophie blinked. "The dress you wore to marry a stranger in 17 minutes of pure chaos?" "That same one. And you're thinking about wearing it again?" Emma got up and went to the bedroom. Sophie followed. The dress was hanging in the back of the closet, covered by a garment bag that Emma didn't remember putting there. Nathan, probably. Silently organizing, as he did with everything. She opened the bag. The tulle was still slightly wrinkled from when she had struggled to get through the door. There was a small dirt stain on the hem. From the garden. From the day she met Margaret. And Nathan. "He saw you in this dress for the first time," Sophie said quietly, understanding. "He saw me at my worst moment, desperate, crying, talking to a rose." Emma touched the fabric. "And still, he said yes." "Emma, I don't want a new dress." She turned to her friend. "I want this one. The same dress, the same garden, but this time with everything different on the inside." Sophie was silent for a moment. Then she started crying. "Sophie." Sorry. She was fanning her hands in front of her face. "It's just that was so beautiful. And I wasn't emotionally prepared, and you never warned me before saying things like that." Emma laughed, pulling her friend into a hug. "You're a terrible war general." "Shut up. I'm excellent. I'm just having a moment." The moment lasted another 5 minutes and 2 boxes of tissues. At 3 in the afternoon, Patricia Hart appeared. Without warning. Because Patricia didn't warn. Patricia simply appeared, like weather phenomena and tax audits. "Mom?" Emma opened the door, surprised. Patricia entered carrying a box that looked antique. "Sophie told me about the dress," she said without preamble. "I thought you might need this." She placed the box on the table and opened it. Inside was a veil. Not just any veil. An antique lace veil, delicate, clearly from another era. "It was your grandmother's," Patricia said, her voice strangely soft. "She wore it at her wedding. I wore it at mine. I was saving it for when you—" She paused. "Well, for when this moment came." Emma felt her eyes burn. "Mom?" "I know I've been difficult." Patricia straightened her shoulders in a way Emma recognized as, "I'm about to say something emotional, and this is uncomfortable. When you showed up with that gardener in a borrowed suit, I thought you had completely lost your mind. To be fair, I had. But I was wrong." Patricia looked at her. "Not about the sanity. You had clearly lost that, but about him, Nathan, he. She searched for the words. He looks at you the way your father used to look at me. Like you're the only person in the room. Like everything he does is to see you smile. Emma couldn't speak. There was something too big in her chest, taking up the space where words should be. Wear the veil tomorrow, Patricia said, and make your father proud, wherever he is. She kissed Emma's forehead and left before either of them could cry. Sophie, who had watched everything from the corner of the room, let out a sob. I can't handle this family anymore. At night, the apartment finally fell silent. Sophie had left with promises to return at 6 in the morning, to make sure you don't get married with your hair looking like a bird's nest. Nathan hadn't come back yet. Emma was alone with her thoughts, and with Miss Toaster, apparently. Tomorrow I'm really getting married, she said to the appliance. To a man I met less than 2 months ago. This is still crazy, isn't it? Miss Toaster remained in philosophical silence. But it's a good kind of crazy. Emma smiled. The best crazy I've ever done. The door opened. The door opened. Nathan came in, looking tired but happy. The garden is ready, he said. Margaret is in the position of honor. You arranged the position of a rose? She's the most important witness. She deserved a good angle. Emma laughed. They looked at each other across the small room. The man who had said yes when he should have said no. The woman who had asked for the impossible and received more than she dreamed. Tomorrow, she said. Tomorrow, he agreed. Are you nervous? Nathan considered the question. I built a billion-dollar company, negotiated with governments, faced hostile board meetings. He paused, and none of that made me as nervous as the idea of seeing you in that dress again. Nervous why? Because this time it's real. He crossed the room and held her face. This time I'm choosing you knowing exactly who you are. A woman who talks to toasters, knocks things over in fancy restaurants, and made me believe in love again when I had given up. Nathan? I love you, Emma Hart. It was the first time he had said it. The first time either of them had said it. And the words filled the tiny apartment until they overflowed. I love you too, she whispered. Nathan Blackwell, gardener, billionaire, the strangest person I've ever met. Technically you're stranger. Technically I know. He kissed her. Soft, full of promises. Sleep well, he said against her lips. Tomorrow you're marrying the love of your life. So are you. Nathan went to the couch, because traditions were traditions, even the invented ones. Emma went to the bedroom. She lay in bed, looking at the dress hanging on the closet door, her grandmother's veil carefully positioned beside it. Tomorrow. Tomorrow she was going to get married in the same garden, in the same dress, to the same man. But everything would be different, because this time she knew exactly what she was doing. And when the sun rose the next morning, painting the room in shades of pink and gold, Emma Hart woke up smiling. Today was the day. The dress still fit. It was the first thing Emma thought when Sophie finished closing the zipper, without struggle, without drama, without needing divine or male intervention this time. You look beautiful, Sophie said, her voice already choked. Oh no, I promised I wouldn't cry until the ceremony. The ceremony is in 20 minutes. That's enough time for me to compose myself. Sophie sniffled. Maybe. Emma looked at herself in the mirror. It was the same dress, the same tulle, the same lace. But the woman inside it was completely different. 6 months ago, she had put on this dress to marry a lie, a ghost, the desperate idea that someone wanted her. Today, she was going to wear the same dress to marry a truth, a real man, with the absolute certainty that she was loved exactly as she was. Disasters, conversations with appliances, and all. The veil. Sophie extended the delicate lace Patricia had brought. Emma held the fabric with almost reverent care. 3 generations of Hart women had worn this veil. Her grandmother, who met her grandfather at a dance and married him 3 weeks later. Her mother, who fought with her father for 40 years and loved every second. And now her. Grandma would have liked him, Emma said quietly. Grandma would have said he's too handsome to be trustworthy, and then would have stolen him to dance a waltz. Emma laughed, a tear escaping. Yeah, she would have. Sophie positioned the veil with careful fingers. Ready? Emma took a deep breath. Ready. The church garden looked like a dream. Nathan had transformed the place, not with billionaire ostentation, but with gardener care. String lights wound between the branches of the oak trees. White chairs formed an aisle leading to an arch covered in roses. And in the center of everything, in a special vase positioned beside the improvised altar, was Margaret, the red rose that had heard Emma cry on the worst day of her life. The silent witness of how everything began. There were maybe 30 people there, close family, a few friends. Patricia in the front row, wearing a smaller hat than usual, practically a declaration of humility for her. Father Johnson, who looked relieved to finally be conducting a wedding where both parties had shown up. And Nathan. Nathan, standing under the arch of flowers, wearing a suit that this time fit perfectly. No yellow polka dots, no sleeves too short, no smell of mothballs. But when he saw Emma at the beginning of the aisle, the expression on his face was exactly the same as 2 months ago, as if she were the most unexpected and wonderful thing that had ever appeared in his life. Emma started walking. She didn't trip, she didn't knock anything over, she didn't step on her own hem. It was practically a miracle. "You made it," Nathan whispered when she reached the altar. "It's not over yet. There's still plenty of time for me to cause some disaster. I wouldn't bet against it." Father Johnson cleared his throat. "We are gathered here, again, to celebrate the union, again, of Emma and Nathan." He looked at both of them over his glasses, this time with both bride and groom present from the start, which I consider a significant improvement. Soft laughter traveled through the guests. "The couple has prepared personal vows," the father continued. "Nathan, you may begin." Nathan held Emma's hands. She could feel the slight tremor in his fingers. The calmest man in the universe was nervous. It was the most beautiful thing she had ever seen. "Emma," he began, his voice firm despite the tremor. "2 months ago, a woman in a wedding dress invaded my garden, knocked a gnome onto my head, and started talking to a rose as if it were the most normal thing in the world." More laughter. Emma felt her face warm. "I should have found it strange, should have politely stepped away. Should have done anything except say yes when she asked me to marry her after 10 minutes of conversation." He paused. "But the truth is that in that moment, looking at you, I knew. I can't explain how or why. I simply knew that my life had just changed forever." Emma felt the tears begin. "You taught me that vulnerability isn't weakness, that talking to inanimate objects is perfectly acceptable, that pancakes are a language of love, and that sometimes the best things in life happen when you stop planning and simply say yes." He squeezed her hands. "I promise to spend the rest of my life saying yes to you. Yes to your crazy ideas. Yes to your conversations with toasters. Yes to every adventure, every disaster, every perfect and imperfect moment. Because there's no one I'd rather face chaos with than you." Sophie sobbed audibly in the front row. Patricia was suspiciously quiet, the handkerchief already in use. "Emma?" The father said softly, "Your turn." Emma took a deep breath. She had written the vows, had memorized them, had practiced in the mirror. And now, looking at Nathan, she forgot absolutely everything. "Okay," she said, half laughing, half crying. "I had a beautiful speech prepared, but my brain apparently decided to take a vacation, so I'm going to improvise." Nathan smiled, that smile that reached his eyes. "Nathan Blackwell, you are the strangest person I've ever met, and I say that as a compliment, because I talked to appliances and named my firm, so my standard for strange is pretty high." Laughter. "You showed up on the worst day of my life and turned it into the best. You married a crazy stranger without asking for anything in return. You slept on my sidewalk couch while being a billionaire and never complained. You make pancakes every morning and treat my plant better than I ever have." She looked at Margaret, the rose, there beside them. "And you give names to flowers, you talk to them. You understand that sometimes we need to talk to things that don't respond because the world is too confusing and roses don't judge." Her voice faltered for a second. "I spent my whole life thinking I needed to be rescued, that someone would show up and fix everything that was broken in me. But you didn't rescue me, Nathan. You sat beside me in the middle of chaos and said we would figure it out together. As partners, as equals." She squeezed his hands. "I promise to be your partner. In every decision, every problem, every pancake morning, and every movie night. I promise to talk when something is wrong instead of hiding it. I promise to let you organize my shoes even when I think it's unnecessary. And I promise to love you exactly as you are, calm, mysterious, strangely obsessed with plant drainage, and absolutely perfect for me. Father Johnson sniffled. Apparently, even he was emotional. "Well," he said, his voice slightly hoarse, "by the powers vested in me by the state of Georgia, I pronounce you. Well, you were already married, so I pronounce you really married this time. You may kiss the bride. Again, but better." Nathan didn't need any more invitation. He pulled Emma into a kiss that wasn't on the forehead, wasn't polite, wasn't respectful. It was a kiss that said everything words couldn't. The guests applauded. Sophie was crying openly. Patricia had abandoned any pretense of composure and was using her hat to fan her face. When they finally separated, Emma looked at Margaret. "Thank you," she whispered to the rose, "for listening." Nathan followed her gaze and smiled. She said it was her pleasure. "You speak rose now? I speak many things." They walked back down the aisle, hands intertwined, under a shower of petals the guests were throwing. And when they reached the end, where the garden met the world, Emma stopped. "Nathan?" "Yes, we did everything backwards. We did. Got married, got engaged, dated, got married again. A perfectly reasonable order." Emma laughed, resting her head on his shoulder. "What comes next?" Nathan looked at her, at the garden, at Margaret, who swayed gently in the afternoon breeze. "Everything," he said. "Everything comes next." And for the first time in her life, Emma Hart, now officially Emma Blackwell, believed it. 3 years later, when their daughter was born, they took her to the church garden to meet Margaret. The rose was still there, still a good listener. And when little Sarah Blackwell reached her tiny hand toward the red petals, Emma knew that some stories don't end. They just bloom. The end. So what did you think of the billionaire gardener who traded $5 billion for the peace of caring for roses? Leave your opinion in the comments. On a scale of 0 to 10, what rating would you give this story? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to receive more heartwarming stories like this one.